Let's start building Dashboard 3 by making our tree map first. Tree maps are a great way to show 100% of a big group and see how it breaks down, especially when there are many categories. So to understand why a tree map is helpful, let's actually look back at the bar chart we were creating in Dashboard 1. We've got a bunch of the same information. Each name has a mark, the most common names are still really accessible, and we can even add each name's percentage of all the social security cards. But in order to see more names, we have to keep scrolling, and it gets really difficult really fast to get a sense of the big picture. This is where a tree map comes in. We can see all 32,600 names at the same time and get a really good sense of the most common names without losing sight of the sheer quantity of those less common names. Okay, let's build this thing. First things first, think about what a mark is in a tree map. We need one rectangle per name. So let's pull the name variable to detail. Great. Now let's turn this sea of squares into a tree map. We want each square to be sized by how common its name is, or how many times it occurred. So let's drag the occurrences pill to size. And boom, Tableau makes a tree map. It's sized each rectangle in proportion to all the other name occurrences. In other words, Tableau used percentages. The entire tree map is 100% of the social security cards. The James rectangle takes up 1.8% of the total area. Why? Because James occurred 4,792,168 times, which is 1.8% of 271,254,841 social security cards that were issued in the 20th century. So then we might think, well, wouldn't it be helpful to have that percentage in our tooltips? Yes, it would. So how do we add it though? How about a table calculation? We'll look at the entire table or visualization and calculate each name's percentage of the total occurrences. First, drag the occurrences pill to tooltips. Then click the drop-down menu on the occurrences pill and select Quick Table Calculation, and then click Percent of Total. When you see that delta on the data pill, you know there's a table calculation happening in there, and when we hover over our tooltips, we see the percentage that's been added. Now, anytime I add any type of calculation, I always check it manually to make sure Tableau is doing what I think I've asked Tableau to do. I'll grab a calculator and make sure that when I divide the James occurrences by the total occurrences for the entire tree map, I do in fact get 1.767%, and I do. Wonderful. Last step. Let's add a touch more emphasis by adding the occurrences pill to color. The more common names will be darker, and then the color will lighten up as the names become less common. And lastly, I'm going to change my color spectrum to purple. Take one last look at the marks card before we move on. A tree map in Tableau doesn't use the columns or the rows card, just the marks card. And our marks card uses the same variable, occurrences, 3 times. Tableau looks at the sum of the occurrences to determine, first, how big a given mark should be, then its percent of total occurrences, and finally, how light or dark the mark should be. But don't forget that the name pill on detail is what makes this all work. The tree map is divided up based on 1 mark per name. That's the detail of the visualization. And if we pull this pill, the whole thing turns back into 1 boring mark. Okay, on to a calculated field. Just name your sheet and we're off to step 2.